What the fuck? Thanks.
Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to the Hell If I Know podcast, episode 17, I believe.
There's three of us.
There's three of us again. We've remultiplied. We found him. Mac
We're the three best
got
friends.
lost in the grocery store, but we went and found him and we got him back.
I wish they didn't find me.
It's not nice.
Face down in a crate full of Pringles.
Mac, you don't seem
Time
like
of
a
his life.
Pringles guy to me.
I'm not a Pringles guy. I'm not a chip guy.
He was probably face down in
Oreos.
You seem like an Oreo guy.
A lot of Oreos.
Double stuffed peppermint or just regular OG Oreos?
Double stuff. I'm not a
Or
person.
Hydroxes.
Double stuff me.
Daddy. Okay.
No.
So we're
Leading
starting
into the topic.
leading into the topic. So this was sent to us by a viewer who messaged me about it, and he said we should talk about censorship. And what spawned this was we have a viewer in Germany. Shout out to Germany. And we live in America. America. And then so some games that are released here in their current forms. No, but this isn't okay. So basically, what we're talking about is censorship in gaming, and what I mean by that is certain games that come from one side of the world to the other change before they're released in a different market. And now the example Mac and I know the best is that the Fallout games have never been released in India because the Brahmin, which is a main killable, cookable thing in Fallout, is sacred to Indian culture. So that game is not decreed by the Indian government to be sold in country.
It might be a chief deity in Hinduism.
I don't think it's a chief deity in Hinduism. It's
It's one of the big three.
It's a sacred object, I'd say. It's a sacred object and symbol, but I don't think it's a chief deity. Whatever. We don't know. We're not going to claim to be experts. We took that class junior year of high school.
Where's Google?
Mac's going to solve that problem really quick. So
We did no research.
we did no research for this. No, but that's a good example of it. Another good example is, and you think about this, the Wolfenstein games released here versus released in Germany. No, I couldn't specifically. I'm sure they're out there, but I couldn't find the specific differences that they make to the game. I would imagine there's some symbolism changes. Like I'm sure some of the icons aren't as shown. Because, I mean, we have no issue showing swastikas here in the United States. Hell, some people vote while displaying swastikas. But,
There it is.
what do you mean there it is?
I was wondering.
Before we continue any further, Brahmin is the head of the religious sect in Hinduism.
Like a priest?
Priest and form of God.
Okay.
So, from what I can tell, the way they censored it is they took... There's a scene in Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, which is a really good game. You should play it if you haven't. Where
I'm not gonna play it.
there are actors who are there to play your character, B.J. Blazkowicz, in a film that the Nazis are making to make him seem like a villain. And they're casting in this huge mansion. Sure enough, Adolf Hitler walks in. He stumbles in. He's an old man. Whatever. In the American version of the game, he has his typical mustache. In the German version of the game, he does not have his mustache, and the swastikas on the walls are changed to a different logo. It's kind of like the what were the villains in Captain America? Shit, what are they called? Hydra. It's kind of like that. They don't really have swastikas, you know what I mean?
Hail Hydra.
But it's kind of the same idea. So that's a good example of it, and there's big reasons for that. I think for Germany, I think it's while they've come a long way, and there's no other way around it. They've come a long way from that. There were definitely efforts in the 1950s and 60s to where they really wanted to distance themselves from that history to now where they're accepting of it, and they will wear the shame of that. Even this current generation who has no fault in it wear a shame that they shouldn't have to at times, but they have fully accepted the shame that comes with what occurred in their country. Something Americans have trouble doing at times, looking back at their own past. So that's kind of interesting to see that kind of censorship. The kind of more fun side of censorship, quote unquote, if we want to get away from Nazism, is Japanese games. What's censored for the Japanese culture and not censored for us. So like we have no issue with like sex and drugs and all that stuff in our games. It doesn't bother us.
Cough, cough, GTA 5.
Cough, cough, GTA 5. Trevor's whole dialogues 90% of the time. And also, when we first meet Trevor, he's banging a biker chick on meth. So.
Hashtag CIA torture scene.
The CIA torture scene is a good example. The only skippable mission. There's two skippable missions I've ever found in games. You can skip that if you don't want to do it. And you can skip the airport mission in Modern Warfare 2. No Russian. You can skip No Russian if you don't want to participate.
Good example of that.
Which I understand to a degree.
Speaking of a mission that probably should have been censored.
But those are two very good examples of it. But if you look at Japanese culture in general, like their attitudes are fascinating to me. Like they have no issue with like porn and all that stuff, but like they censor parts of it in the film, and I'm like, why? Like, is there some mask we're putting up here where we don't know what's happening, but we really know what's happening? Tee-hee-hee-hee-hee. Like, what the fuck is that? I don't know. It's interesting to see from west to east and east to west what we all value in our own cultures. Yeah. Thanks for giving me dead air to edit out, guys. Thanks.
No fucking problem, bro.
I'm trying
Well,
to
it's
figure out how I can
censorship's been going on like since fucking 1980s. So
I mean, censorship's been going on since the beginning of the United States and since the beginning of time.
In video games, not
in video games, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, like one of the earliest ones was from Punch Out. There was a character called Vodka Drunsky, and we had to censor that to what was it? Let's see, it was Soda Popinski, which arguably better name.
I mean, like, aren't a bunch of like the animes you get in the States, if you get them in a United States release and not a Japanese release, aren't they watered down? Like, aren't they really watered down for their content?
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of that, I don't know if it's, I mean, making the bridge over to anime as well, I'm not sure how much of it is geared towards any one specific art form based on how those changes are kind of consistent from medium to medium. And I think it's more of just a big deal of how, I mean, like you were saying, how each different country and each culture has what they deem acceptable and what isn't acceptable, and how they kind of struggle to apply that evenly across every different art medium that is going to have like a multicultural fan base or just viewership in general.
Yeah,
definitely. That's the trickiest part, I think, of marketing, especially marketing an international product, is looking at what another culture will want versus what your domestic culture will want. So it's kind of interesting. A good example of that is cars. Like Chinese cars, the rear passenger gets more room than the two front passengers do. Which, if you've ridden in America at any extension amount of time, you know that is the opposite case here in the States. Like, we build whole cars where there's a quote-unquote back seat, but the back seat is really for bags and other rubbish you can't keep in the front seat. So
the back seat is literally so they can get away on fucking insurance.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Because, I mean, like, you'll see, like, some Lexus convertibles that only have two doors have a back seat, and it's like, what the fuck? No, one of the Corvettes had a back seat, I think. It had they would be
able to claim it as not a sedan, but they could.
It's like It's like a sports coupe instead of like an actual supercar or a sports car. Because sports cars and supercars are so much more expensive to insure and pay to get on the road. Whereas if it's a passenger vehicle, quote unquote, it can get on for a lot less because it's more practical, which is the dumbest shit ever.
So we all know and appreciate the practicality of a Corvette.
Right? Who doesn't like the practicality of a Corvette? So I don't really want to dive too deep into censorship because you get into a place where you can walk yourself into a corner really quickly. I think in a way it has a place in society, but at the same token, it runs two different streets. It can go too far and begin to violate people's rights, and at the same token, it cannot do enough, and you can end up harming people by saying stupid shit. If that makes sense. So I think
like you're adding somebody.
I would really like to see, I mean, in regards to Wolfenstein being one of the main examples used in this conversation, and just kind of the idea of portraying a culture's history when you're outside of that culture and that being received kind of differently than expected by
Well,
the
it's
culture
like-
that's mentioned. I would really love to see another country have a game studio, make a game involving the U.S. be the bad guys, focusing on, like, I don't know, the genocide of
The
any
Native
group
Americans.
that was here before us, or just the ongoing terrible treatment of any type of, you know,
Minority.
disenfranchised or minority or disabled or anything other than just rich white guys.
So here is
See how well that sells. in
I have the
States.
Wolfenstein 2 case in my hand, and the interior cover says Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus is a fictional story set in an alternative universe in the 1960s. Names, characters, organizations, locations, and events are either imaginary or depicted in a fictionalized manner. The story and contents of this game are not intended to and should not be construed in any way to condone, glorify, or endorse the beliefs, ideologies, events, actions, persons, or behavior of the Nazi regime, or to trivialize its war crimes, genocide, and other crimes against humanity. So I feel like at no time is anybody going to say that in Wolfenstein, where you're hunting Nazis like animals and you gut them like fish, are you proclaiming them? But you have to say that in a way because people take it to that extreme. They're automatically going to say, well, we're showing this, you know what I mean? Or is this not going to make them idolize that? If you play that game, if you play the first mission of that game and you're like, those people seem cool, you genuinely need to be put in a soft room. Like, you need to be put in a soft room with handcuffs on because you shouldn't be out in society. There's absolutely no reason you should be out in society.
Well, there was still a very thinly veiled amount of backlash over, you know, the antagonistic group of that game by people's, well, you know, why don't we focus on something other than violence towards these people? Why are you so worried about people being violent towards Nazis?
That was always my favorite thing about the way things were covered after the Charlottesville riots involving the alt-right, quote unquote, the Nazis and the Antifa people. And what was funny was when somebody, I think it was the president who was like, you know, what about the alt-left? Anybody who stands up against Nazis is pretty okay in my book. I mean, dead ass. If you don't like Nazis, you're pretty fucking solid about, like, you're pretty solid in my book. All right, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to a funnier topic to me because I just found this. So Best Buy, a store I know well. They know me well too because I've bought a shit ton of stuff from them.
Look at Mr. Rich Guy over here. I buy a shit ton of stuff.
You can ask Mac. I buy a lot of really small things, and then every once in a while I buy a big thing. Mostly it's cables because I break cables all the time.
I fucking feel that.
And I'd rather buy it in town than wait a week to have it shipped to me from Amazon. So
get that Prime life.
Okay, Mr. Moneybags over here with his Prime. So Best Buy. This is a story from Friday. Best Buy accidentally sold a customer the unannounced Chromecast device, the unannounced Google Chromecast device, because if nobody knows this, I'm gonna tear the curtain back. When a store is gonna launch a product, they have that product for like 2 weeks in advance, because they're planning on how they're gonna do their launch release, how they're gonna do their displays and stuff like that. So they have it in storage at the store. So somebody came in and stocked the shelves, and they just put it up on the shelves. So the story here, which is on The Verge, which is now going to be like one of our favorite places because they write super good stories, was Google has its annual fall hardware event planned for October 9th, which is a week from today, or would be like 6 days from Wednesday when this comes out, which is when they'll see the official announcement of the Pixel 3 and the Pixel 3 XL phones, which I've heard the Google phones are really good. Google made some hardware upgrades, and one of those upgrades was the company's Chromecast line, not Comcast. Apologies. I would never say anyone was as bad as Comcast. So the Best Buy people put it out on the shelf, and a customer bought it because he just picked it up off the shelf because he thought he was buying the old Chromecast, and he bought the new one a week in advance. The biggest upgrades to it was that it has 4K compatibility. So yeah, but that was just kind of funny to me.
So did he make it home with this and like get it set up, or did it?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
It says
at what point did they realize that somebody had egregiously fucked up?
The customer who posted a photo of the product and an account of the story on Reddit under the name Grove Street Homie says it didn't even show up. It didn't even show up in Best Buy's system, but that the cashier rang up the product under a listing for an older Chromecast. It's not earth-shattering news to know
Ooh.
that Google is planning a third-generation Chromecast to replace the 2015 model, which has since been outdated by the 4K-equipped Chromecast Ultra of 2 years ago. Still, the surprise for Google's event next month, which this was on the 29th, have all but evaporated, considering the Pixel 3 and Pixel 3 XL have been extensively leaked over the course of the last 2 months, and now we can check a new Chromecast off the list. So that's kind of funny. But you know what's funny, though? I don't put that on the cashier, though, because, I mean, I've been in the store when a shit ton of stuff won't ring up. And they have to, you know what I mean? You just have to find the value of the item. The Dunkin' Donuts we go to in the morning, Mac, is a good example of this. Because for the longest time, they couldn't scan drinks out of the fridge. They had to search it and find it. And they had to ring it up that way. So it's not mind-blowing to me that this occurred. I put it on the stalker who went to the do not touch section of the back room and stocked the shelf with it.
That motherfucker. That was his last day.
Yeah, he saw that story break, and he saw where the store was, and he was like, "I'm not going back. They can't make me come back. I'm not doing it.
Can't fire me if I never show up."
Apparently, also a new Nielsen rating. Which, if you're not aware, Nielsen ratings, they do TV ratings, so they check engagement and they check audiences. If you ever see sometimes in the New York Times and in the USA Today reviews of TV shows or on engagement reports, they'll say "Oh, this premiere got this many households in America that normally watch that broadcasting." Good examples that get a shit ton was I think so. I'm trying to think. The final episode of MASH, I think, got a shit ton of views. I'm gonna look it up here really quick, but in this case,
I think it's still if
it's
it
the
doesn't
most
hold the
watched
record
finality.
anymore, but it is very, very close. It's not still at the top. There's a really fun Family Guy episode about that.
MASH is probably one of the most influential TV shows of all time. I'm gonna look it up here in a second. But apparently now a quarter of U.S. households own a smart speaker, which would be like Amazon Echo or one of those devices. And apparently nearly a quarter of U.S. households own one. I do not own one.
I don't know one.
I don't have one.
Fucking, there's a fourth guy out there somewhere who will be a part of the podcast in the future, maybe, who has one.
105.9 million viewers, by the way, for the MASH series finale.
It's pretty good.
Which, especially for the time, that's insane, yeah.
Yeah, the MASH finale aired in 1983 to 83.3 million homes in the United States had televisions compared to almost 115 million in 20. Wait, no, it got Nielsen rating and a 77 share, 125 million viewers. So yeah, pretty much almost every home in America was borderline watching. That's pretty good.
Could do better.
I'd call that a win, boys. I'd call that a win. I love MASH. MASH is such a good show. Oh, so also, side note, in the net neutrality thing, which net neutrality is a good thing. Let's all remember that.
Still an ongoing issue.
Still an ongoing
which
issue.
A lot of people seem to have forgotten completely about.
California, the heroic West Coast, if you want to call them that. Sometimes they're kind of stupid, though. I'll give that opinion. California governor has signed the nation's toughest net neutrality bill into law, which is that I guess it's California drawing a line in the sand, which they claim to do all the time. Within a day, the Trump administration has said that they are going to sue the state of California over this law because it goes against federal law. Which I didn't think they passed a law on net neutrality. I thought they just ruled that they were going to look into changing the net neutrality laws passed under the Obama administration, but that they hadn't really done anything yet, except put a guy in charge of whatever it is, the internet part of the government, who has comically sized mugs because he thinks he's relatable and he's not. He just eats a bag of dicks.
It's doubly funny because I didn't think that the Supreme Court actually gave a shit about people breaking the law in the first place.
It's not the Supreme Court. It's somebody else.
The government, the United States federal government in general, is all going to get lumped into that one right now.
It's the head of the FCC. It's the head of the FCC. The FCC chair. I'm going to look at
California has been very vocal about their distaste for the entire situation since the FCC decided to make it public that they were attempting to repeal net neutrality.
Ajit Pai is his name. Ajit Pai. He assumed office January 23rd, 2017.
You guys know why he's asking for net neutrality, right?
Just the bags and bags of money getting put in his pocket?
No, I mean, have you seen the video of the kiss or whatever? You can't tell me that dude doesn't look like that fucking dude.
Not wrong.
I can see it.
So somehow the internet got looped into a law under Title II of the Communications Act of 1934, which is a Communications Act that was passed, tell me if I'm wrong, like 50 years before the internet.
That
Or two police
I don't
actions,
see how you can justify that.
or two police actions in a world war before the if we want to use the real way that Americans tell time, two police actions in a world war before the internet came along.
Were we at war? That's
Oh, he got the recommendation of Mitch McConnell. Dude, the fucking oldest Ninja Turtle is recommending people for jobs now. And if you don't think Mitch McConnell looks like a turtle, you're dead wrong. Mitch McConnell looks like a fucking turtle. I
wasn't ready.
I will
You're
stand
not
by
wrong,
that.
though.
Motherfucker looks like a turtle.
I'm gonna look up just to refresh. Jesus fucking Christ.
He looks like a turtle.
Well, especially the picture on Google is him making the turtle face.
Dude,
I'm moving
you know
out
what?
of the country.
You know what makes it is his fucking upper lip. If his upper lip didn't look like that, it doesn't carry.
What
but
upper lip?
His upper lip is literally like it
Gone.
looks like a snapping turtle's jaw though. Like it looks like it's like overlapping his lower jaw. It's hilarious. I think Mac knows who we're talking about. I hope so.
I do.
Okay. Also, Japan. This just popped up. Japan has a robot contractor who can install drywall if you need it to.
That's nice of him.
That's nice of him. He's like that. You remember that video, Mac, of like the four-legged robot where like he's got the leash on him and the guy like pulls it back and they're like fighting it to get through the door? It literally looks like that. It's just on two legs. Like those robots are going to become Terminators and they're going to hang us on the drywall that they hang.
Nice.
So yeah, I think that's going to cover all our topics for today. Thank you guys for stopping by again. We got back to 3 of us, so we're back winning on a winning score again.
Hey.
Don't count on it.
Don't count on it. All right. I hope you guys have a good week. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know we covered some not so super exciting topics, but right now we're kind of in a bit of a lull before the next tech conferences and stuff, so there's not a lot of game announcements right now. The biggest one we covered, obviously, last time, which was the Animal Crossing and the Isabelle being in the new Smash Bros., which is coming to the Nintendo Switch. I hope you guys have a good week. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like this video. Be sure to comment what you want to see next time, and be sure to subscribe. And as always, have a good day and a good week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Or don't.